The fall off is like Hove dropping Reasonable Doubt last. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, we are in for a good one. I know by now all of you know the news of the fall off being released on February the 6th. Of course, that is a nod to J. Cole's hometown of Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is commonly referred to as 2-6 or the 2-6. But in this video, I want to talk about my anticipation for the album and what all I'm expecting and just how important I think that this album is, not just to J. Cole's career, but hip hop as a whole right now. Welcome back to the Voiceovers Podcast. I'm 24K Logan. So when the news had first dropped about the fall off, I unfortunately wasn't able to give my intake on it due to an illness, but I'm so glad to be back in the fold. Shout out to King Ironic on the last video, giving y'all an update and some commentary around the fall off. Now, the first thing I want to start off with is Disc 2, Track 2. Now, first and foremost, hell of a record. I think Disc 2, Track 2 also confirms and makes it very obvious that we should expect a double disc album or a double album by J. Cole for the fall off. I mean, it's literally called Disc 2, Track 2. Also, if you've seen the Instagram post from the fall off account, you see someone handling the vinyls, the limited edition vinyls, if I'm not mistaken. And there was about 4 different vinyls in that one packet. So definitely just more evidence that we should be expecting a double album, especially if this is going to be J. Cole's last and final studio album, as he alluded to at the beginning of the Disc 2 Track 2 video when he said, I attempted to do on my last album what I could not do on my first. And for him to make that statement 2 years ago that the fall off is like Hove dropping Reasonable Doubt last, I think that's his way of affirming to us that this is his best work. And of course, we have yet to see that. I know in a lot of people's eyes, Forest Hills Drive is J. Cole's greatest album to date. I would agree, although I think there's a strong argument for Born Sinner and even For Your Eyes Only. But when you spend a decade, a consistent decade of working on one particular album, and when you go on to tell us that there were 6 iterations of said album, I just don't see how you can't expect anything else other than quality, greatness. You know, I really believe that we are in for a classic album. I've already said on numerous occasions, I would not be surprised if the fall off ended up going down in history as the greatest album of the 2020s decade. Yeah, I could even see it being better than The Forever Story by Jid, which I believe is currently the greatest rap album of the decade. I could see it being better than Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, Alfredo 1 and 2 by Freddie Gibbs. Obviously, we have yet to see the album come out, so I have to reserve my judgment on that. It's just hard for me, being a J. Cole fan and studying his career since the beginning and seeing how he's evolved throughout time. I just don't see how you work on an album for 10 years and it's not greatness. It just doesn't make sense. And given the type of artist that J. Cole is, how patient he is, and just his timing with his releases, with his moves, I expect nothing but greatness out of this album first and foremost. And the rapping on Disc 2, Track 2 just added on to that. I mean, think about it. This man was literally rapping his life from basically what he perceived to be the end of his life all the way back to the very beginning, which was the day that he was born. Talking about the come up of his career, the heights, the lows, the things that he's went through, personal issues and whatnot, fatherhood. He wrapped all of that into this 3-minute song, give or take. And then at the very end of the song, he teased another song that I think we all can expect to be on the fall off. Now, moving on to the conversation of It's a Boy. Of course, if you go back to that Instagram post that J. Cole made back in 2020, I believe it was, when he had on display the entire fall off era, right? He had all the plans leading up into the fall off, which was features, Revenge of the Dreamers 3, The Off Season, It's a Boy, and The Fall Off. Well, at this point, we obviously got Revenge of the Dreamers 3, we got The Off Season, and J. Cole has been on an insane feature run for this decade, and that only leaves us with It's a Boy and The Fall Off. Now, some people thought that Might Delete Later replaced It's a Boy, and I can't lie, I was one of those people. I did think that Might Delete Later had actually replaced It's a Boy, but as time goes on and the fact that Disc 2, Track 2 recently came out, the fact that J. Cole rapped about his life in reverse, talked about fatherhood and things of that nature, and then to add to it, for Jadakiss, for him to say on his own podcast that he recently heard a J. Cole mixtape that he was rapping over classic Locks beats such as Money, Power, Respect. He also rapped over Can I Live, apparently. For us to get that news, it's hard for me to believe that Jadakiss was just running his mouth. I definitely believe him, and it seems that It's a Boy is definitely a possibility again. And J. Cole has also talked about It's a Boy briefly. I know he talked about it in the off-season documentary. He also mentioned it on a interview or a podcast episode that he was doing. I think he had guest starred on Kevin Durant's platform at one point. So It's a Boy, I think, is definitely still a possibility, and I do believe the theory that he'll release it on January the 28th, which of course is his birthday. So it will be very clever, and it will be a good idea to actually release that on the day that he just so happened to be born, and call the mixtape It's a Boy. And the last thing that I wanted to get into is just how important this album is for J. Cole. Well, of course, there's this thing in hip hop where we've seen rappers refer to retirement, like Jay-Z back in 2003 when he released the Black Album, and he had announced that as his retirement, and everybody believed him. And then we fast forwarded to the year 2026, we've gotten 444. We've gotten, let's see, Magna Carta. We've also gotten Watch the Throne with Kanye West. So it's kind of hard for people to believe that a rapper is actually retiring, especially considering the fact that in 2025, a lot of older rappers release projects like The Clips, Nas, Ice Cube. It's hard to believe that a rapper is just going to straight up retire from rapping. But again, the type of artist that J. Cole is, and considering that he's worked on The Fall Off for 10 years, he's teased this album going all the way back to 2018 when he released the Album of the Year freestyle video. And for him to say The Fall Off is like Hove dropping Reasonable Doubt last, for him to say I attempted to do on my last album what I couldn't do on my first, I think that just adds to the fact that he's very serious about his retirement. And I think that J. Cole wants to go out with a bang. He wants to go out on top. He's a perfectionist. He's not gonna continuously put out music if it's not in his heart, if it's not genuine, if he's not putting time, love, and care and intention into his music. And that's another thing. J. Cole is an artist of intentions and purity, and just wanting to deliver not just to his audience and his hardcore fan base, but for his own personal gain and fulfillment. And that is just more of a reason why I believe that The Fall Off will be his last and final studio album, therefore making it his most important. Because if this is his last studio album, and a lot of people believe that it will be, well, this is going to be the most recent memory of him. Let's say 5-10 years from now, the truth holds that he hasn't released any more music after The Fall Off. The Fall Off will be the most recent memory of J. Cole, and something that people will, hold against him, whether it's good or bad, which I believe, quite frankly, we're in for a classic project. But again, I have to reserve my judgment. We still have yet to see the project come out. But if J. Cole is one of the first or even the very first rapper to take this retirement thing seriously, this has to be a good album from start to finish. I think the margin for error is quite honestly zero for J. Cole at this point. Of course, you add on to the fact that there's this weird narrative or weird perception against J. Cole that because he backed out of a beef that wasn't even his to begin with, he's not allowed to be braggadocious. He's not allowed to talk about certain things. I highly disagree with that. I've never agreed with it. As a matter of fact, I've went on record multiple times on this channel saying that I think J. Cole is the better lyricist between him, Kendrick, and Kendrick and Drake. I've always said that, actually. Not saying that he just washes Kendrick and Drake lyrically, but lyrically at this moment in time, I think that he is in the best pure form, just, pure skill and talent with rapping, just the art of rapping itself, lyricism, metaphors, double and triple entendres, punchlines, bars. I think that J. Cole is doing that better than Kendrick Lamar and Drake right now. And I think that the fall off is going to be a reminder of why J. Cole is not only one of the greatest lyricists of all time, but one of the all-time great rappers. I think he's going to remind people of that with the fall off. And I think his biggest intention is cementing his place in hip hop and in music, but also going out with a bang. And the fall off, in my opinion, will be something for generations to remember. It'll be something to remember for generations, especially if you're a hip hop fan. But that's all I wanted to talk about today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We have plenty of content on the way. Comment down below what you think about the recent news surrounding the fall off, what you think about the Disc 2, Track 2 video, and what are your anticipations? Who do you think could be featured on the fall off? Also, I'm going to be doing more coverage on the fall off as time goes on. Thank you again so much for watching, and until next time, peace and love to everybody.